In this video, I'm going to talk about AI principles for executives. Quick background about me. My name is Don Planner. I left BCG to build an AI deployment company called Data Zen. And so in BCG, I had the opportunity to work closely with a lot of corporate and enterprise executives and the way they are thinking about AI. But I wanted to have more control over how that is implemented and deployed and where the ROI lives. So that's why I did that. All right, so let's get started. So principle one is that 95% of enterprise AI returns zero impact on the P&L. This is a study from MIT. I'll link it in the description. And the reason for that is that the bottleneck moved from being the models to organizational adaptation. Back in 2022, when AI initially came out with ChatGPT, the models were just not strong enough to be super helpful for companies. It was already quite good in helping with being a better search engine or just general reasoning in questions and helping, but it was not good enough to actually do the work. And it also was lacking all the connectors that it now has or the coding capabilities to create custom tools or just edit files on your computer. So all of that meant that the model, the AI itself, was the real bottleneck. But everything changed in late 2025, around Q4, when Claude Code and Codex came out and really made everything better. And it's very interesting that Claude Code is called Claude Code because it was initially developed for developers or coders, but quickly the whole industry realized that everything digital is code, and so it really worked for marketers or any sort of job title because it could just edit files and any sort of file. So it could help you create a presentation or it could help you create a spreadsheet for finance people. And so since the model problem is solved, the next real bottleneck, since the beginning of 2026 at least, is company-wide or department-wide adaptation, and so people actually using it. And here's the proof. OpenAI launched a $4 billion backed company called OpenAI Deployment Company, and so it's partnered with McKinsey, Bain, and Anthropic also launched Anthropic Services, which is partnering with Goldman Sachs and Accenture and Deloitte and PwC and all these consulting companies. And what they are doing is that they are going for the Fortune 500 companies with deals sizes between $1 million and $100 million in order to use forward deployed engineers to go into these Fortune 500 organizations and then put one of their forward deployed engineer, which is, by the way, a mix of an AI engineer and essentially a product manager who understands both business functions and also how to use AI. And so that can help you unlock the ROI in AI. And so the Fortune 500 companies are definitely served by these giant consulting companies from OpenAI and Anthropic and also MBB, including like McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and the Big Four. And small businesses are also served by a lot of AI agencies ranging from like $500 a month to $5,000 a month because those retainers are small enough to afford it for small businesses. But where we see the gap is mid-market companies ranging from $100 million to $10 billion in annual recurring revenue because those companies usually are not served by OpenAI because those deal sizes are just too expensive or Anthropic. But also the small business agencies are just not good enough or they just don't have the capabilities to actually create value. And so with my company, with Data Zen, core target is the mid-market companies. So the next principle that I wanted to make clear, and I actually released a YouTube video about this, is the AI ladder. But let's just go through it quick here. So every company sits in one of these buckets when it comes to the AI ladder. And so let's just go through quickly the buckets. So the buckets are like big areas and then within the buckets there are levels with non-AI. And so bucket number one is non-AI, just essentially not using it. And at Data Zen, we actually consider companies who use browser-based chatbots like Claude in the browser or ChatGPT non-AI because it doesn't have access to your computer. So the use case between 2022 when ChatGPT came out is not different. It's just the model is smarter, but it doesn't edit files on your computer. It doesn't have access to your purpose-built software, for example, Gmail or Notion or Google Docs, and it's also not creating new tools for your workflow. And so bucket number two is what we call AI empowered, and this has 3 levels. By the way, bucket 2 and bucket 3, the difference is that in AI empowered, humans still drive every decision, and without a human triggering AI is dormant, doesn't do anything. And then in bucket 3, AI will take initiative on its own. But let's talk about bucket 2. So in bucket 2, there are 3 levels. Level 1 is just using an agentic coding tool, such as Claude Code or Codex or Grok Build, or Gemini has its own agentic coding tool. And so the very important part here is that 2 things. It uses an agentic loop, and secondly, it can access your computer and edit files and read files on your computer, which is super important because now the AI can do a lot of work instead of you. instead of just chatting with you if you use the chatbot. Level 2 is using MCP connectors to software that you already use, which is, for example, Gmail or Google Docs or Google Sheets. And so it's not only editing files that are already on your computer, but it is already able to read and edit work in software, in cloud software that you've been using. Level 3 is when you use AI. Level 3 is when you use AI to develop custom-built tools for yourself. An example could be for a CRM department to actually develop a tool where they can create emails instead of using Figma. And so this tool on demand of a human, so a human would be starting this tool, it wouldn't do it on its own. But so using that tool, a human could sit down and create a designed email with AI having context on that brand's specific designs or their tone and the font type and the colors and all of that together. And so to go from bucket 2 to bucket 3, the only difference is that AI becomes more proactive. So it's not only humans starting the tools, but the different tools are now working together. And so AI could be running workflows automatically and then only ask humans to approve the work that they have done. And the reason for this, AI running in the background, is that humans will have free time that can be put into higher leverage tasks. And so one more important thing to say is that if you want to level up between the buckets, you have to go through all the levels, which is bucket 1, level 1, and then bucket 2, level 1, level 2, level 3, and then you can go to bucket 3. And so it's not possible to jump between them. A lot of clients try to do that or ask for it, but we have never seen it working well. And so my recommendation would be is to take it step by step. So in this slide, it's essentially just saying that the roadmap is to go step by step, which we talked about earlier. But another important thing here is whenever you use AI, you're just going to get more efficient, but finding the ROI is a next step. And so getting more efficient is essentially two things. You can free up time, or you can do things that you couldn't do before, which could be, for example, having a 24/7 on-demand analyst that has access to all of your business information data. That is something that you couldn't have done earlier. And so it's essentially increased quantity because you have more time, and so you can do more things, and then increased quality of the work because you have more information to make better decisions. All right, slide number 4 here is just about how to get to ROI, because now with everything that we discussed, by climbing the AI ladder, all you're doing is unlocking efficiency, but unlocking efficiency doesn't directly equal to unlocking ROI. So we believe there are like 3 steps here, which is unlocking efficiency, which Data Zen or any other consultant like OpenAI deployment company can help you with. All of this part we can help you with, or any other deployment company like OpenAI or Anthropic services if you're a Fortune 500 company. But then the step after that, which is, by the way, we believe 95% of the companies skip, and that's why they don't find ROI on their AI projects, is converting that efficiency into either cutting cost or increasing revenue. And so that is very important, and Data Zen probably can't help you with that, or any other consultants, because the executives or the team in a company that spends all their time with their company is just inherently better positioned to turn efficiency into ROI and find higher leverage tasks that can move the company more forward. And so that is something that the company should be aware of. All right, this slide essentially just says the same thing about the company needing to find the ROI, whether by cutting costs or increasing revenue. And so one more argument to look at here is that efficiency doesn't delete jobs, it raises what each person is worth. And I personally, and we at Data Zen genuinely believe that our work makes consumers and workers wealthier. And so here's a quick flowchart, is that AI projects increase efficiency, we just talked about this. And so a more efficient company will be able to create more value. So where does that more value go? Well, it goes to consumer surplus and producer surplus. So the customers are getting a better product, lower price or a faster experience that we can call consumer surplus. And then the producer surplus is more revenue or more profit. And so we can see that more revenue and more profit can lead to a more profitable or larger company. And the growing companies tend to keep hiring. And so pay usually follows productivity. And when it comes to employees, we believe that those who are more AI native or AI empowered and can use the tools more efficiently and can align with a company that's using AI already, will have less competition, and employers will likely look for them more, and they will probably be able to get a higher salary. And so one more interesting quote here is that the doom trolling has been around for a while. For example, when the computer came out, there were a lot of arguments. When the computer came out, there were a lot of articles about computers taking over and we won't have any more jobs left, and that was obviously not correct. And so we don't believe that AI will remove the workforce. We believe that workers and so we don't believe that AI will remove the workforce or replace people. We believe that workers will be more efficient, will be able to be wealthier, and consumers will be able to get better products overall. All right, the last principle here is essentially discussing how to make AI work well whenever you're doing a project within the ladder as well. And so AI essentially needs two kinds of data fed two different ways. And so it needs a knowledge graph for qualitative data, and it needs a BI for AI, data warehouse for quantitative data. So let's look at these two. When it comes to qualitative data, that means not numbers, that we prefer storing in a knowledge graph. Some people call this a second brain. And so what a knowledge graph is just markdown files usually connected to each other. And the connection is done by what we call a front matter, which connects different things to the other ones. The reason for this, and the reason for not using a folder, which will be logical because it's a hierarchical tree that humans like using, is that AI is just more efficient with this. It is more context efficient, and that means that you will use less tokens, so it's cheaper, and that your AI's output will be higher quality. And so that's the reason for using a knowledge graph for qualitative data. What is qualitative data? It's, for example, your tone, the history of the company, can be your design guideline, can be, of course, your SOPs, and all those different things. And number two is quantitative data built for AI. Is a little bit different as well on what we are doing currently, and why we often see that usual data analytics teams don't do an amazing job in creating data warehouses for AI, is because what you need is create a data lake or a unified data warehouse where all of your different softwares, let's take an e-commerce company, for example, you might have Shopify, Amazon, you might have Klaviyo for your CRM, and you might Instagram for social media, and TikTok, and all those different things have its own unique data that you want to measure on different levels. And so all of that should go into a unified data warehouse. You could also just connect them with MCPs initially, and I think that's a good step. But if you want to make it truly AI native, which is bucket 3, we would recommend having a unified data warehouse and then do a lot of pre-made deterministic calculations, essentially calculations that are done by code, because you really want to avoid AI whenever you're doing a data request, creating code for you. So a lot of people really obsessed. It's how cool that AI can create like SQL, and then it creates a 600-line SQL, and it's able to get the data that you want. But that was very token inefficient. It was probably slow, and it might have made a mistake. And so what we prefer doing for clients is to create a bunch of pre-made columns that calculates a lot of the metrics that you would want to use often, and then create a knowledge graph on what column is what. And so, for example, if you have a question about open rates in March, which is a specific month, then instead of AI going into the data warehouse and calculating it from the open rates and taking the time frame, you already have it pre-calculated, and it just checks the knowledge graph, which is very token efficient, to find which column is the per month, and then within that it's easy to find March, and it just finds you the pre-calculated data. And so the reason for this is that it's much faster, much cheaper, and it eliminates hallucination 100%. All right, here's a quick rapid fire of some other ideas that I'm thinking of making a YouTube video about but couldn't fit in this one. Essentially, access is not equal. Well, I'm not gonna read it. Let me know if you're interested in one of them, and I'm happy to go into a more detailed YouTube video on it. With all that being said, thank you for watching it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section. I'm happy to respond to anything, and we have a lot of free tools that we will share on the way. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, or I have my email address in YouTube, and I'll see you in the next video.